Hi everyone, I am Mukesh Bor, first MSc Applied Microbiology, Sector at College of Tirupattur. Today we are going to discuss about transport system. Transportation. The transportation is the movement of molecules and nutrients to an organ and within the organ. The materials used in the transportation may include water, hormones, gases, nutrition, organic material, etc. The different means of transportation are active transport and passive transport. Active transport. It is defined as a process that involves the movement of molecule from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration against a gradient or an obstacle with the use of external energy. In active transport, the materials move from a region of lower concentration to higher concentration. In this image, you can see the in the top the concentration of sodium is less. The concentration of sodium is more, and in below the potassium is more. So you can see the movement here. The sodium molecules are moving towards where the concentration of sodium is more, and the potassium, in case of potassium, it is moving where the potassium molecule is more. Active transport. There are two types of active transport, primary and secondary. In primary active transport, chemical energy is used in the form of ATP, whereas in secondary transport, ATP is not used. Instead, potential energy from electrochemical potential difference is used. In primary active transport, the substances involved are sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium ions. Example of active transport is the sodium potassium pump as shown in the figure here. The secondary active transport, here ATP is not used. Instead, the electrochemical potential difference is used to pump the ions in the cell. It is also called coupled transport or co-transport. An example of the secondary active transport can be sodium ions. When they move down the electrochemical gradient across the plasma membrane, power of the transport of a second ion against each gradient, example hydronium ion. When the sodium ion moves through the electrochemical gradient, the energy produced by it helps to transport the hydrogen ion along with it. Passive transport. In passive transport, the substances move from a higher concentration to an area which has the lower concentration. The movement of substances occurs along the concentration gradient. Here's the example of passive transport. There are four types of passive transport: simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, filtration, osmosis. In simple diffusion, a process of simple diffusion is a process of diffusion that occurs without the aid of an integral membrane protein, which allows the substances to pass through cell membrane without any energy. Here No membrane protein is used, and without energy the substances can move easily. Facilitated diffusion. In this diffusion, the substances move with the assistance of an integral protein. Filtration, the removal of water from solid material, usually for nutrients to be selectively absorbed into the body. The removal of water from solid material is called filtration. Osmosis, the tendency of a fluid to pass through a membrane into a solution where the solvent concentration is higher, thus equalizing the concentration of material on either side of the membrane. The difference between active transport and passive transport are: in active transport, ATP are used; in passive transport, ATP are not used. Active transport requires cellular energy; passive transport do not require cellular energy. In active transport, the circulation process occurs from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration. In passive transport, it is opposite. The circulation occurs from higher concentration to lower concentration. Active transport is dynamic and rapid process, and passive transport is physical and comparatively low process. In active transport, protein, large cell, complex sugar, ions are transported. In passive transport, soluble molecules like oxygen, water, carbon dioxide, lipids, sex hormones, etc. are transported. In active transport, carrier proteins are required. In passive transport, they are not required. Active transport occurs only in one direction. Passive transport is bidirectional. Active transport is highly selective. Passive is partly not selective. It is influenced by temperature. It is not influenced by temperature. Active transport is influenced by metabolic inhibitor. Passive transport is not influenced by metabolic inhibitors. Example of active transport are exocytosis, endocytosis, sodium potassium pump. Example of passive transport is osmosis, diffusion, and facilitated diffusion.